MVC, this is the architecture that ships with Rails. It stands for Model View Controller. Your model is pretty much a Ruby class which encapsulates all of your domain logic, if you're talking about items in the store, all of the things that an item needs to do would be captured in the model. And also, yeah, it's the database wrapper. So your models are the things that represent your database schema for that table, or the way things have persisted in the database. Views, dumb presentation layers. For the most part, your view is pretty much HTML with a few pieces of data just stuck in there. And then the controller is the glue between the models and the views. URLs route to controllers, and the controller very simply says, hey, I need this data from this model, and it gets it, and then it passes it off and says, hey, view, render this data.
Let's start with models. Anyone a Zoolander fan? I believe that's Magnum. Models are all about domain logic. You want to encapsulate all your domain logic in something that sort of wraps your persistent storage and is specific. Like if we're going with the video game store example again, so you're going to store a video game. You want to know all the fields of that video game, and you want to know like what does it mean to be a valid video game? Well, it's got a title, it's probably got a price, maybe it had a release date, and all those things that define what a video game is. I can't think of any operations.
How do you know if it's a new game?
How do I know?
Something that would be a new arrival or something.
Right, you could have an attribute hanging off of it that would do that. Or if you wanted to perform an operation, like let's say a video game is discontinued, you would call the discontinued method on the model.
Yeah. The point is you don't want to put these types of things in your views or in your controllers. You want your model to know everything about its properties.
The compartmentalization is very strict. You will never see any logic like this in the view or controller layers. Again, object relational mapping is handled for you, and all that means is you define these fields. It's got a title, it's got a description, it's got a price. Those in a conventional way map down to database fields, and the loading and saving is all handled for you automatically in a standard way.
You define all of your relationships in your model. Rails ships with your basic has one, has many, many-to-many relationships. They're extremely easy to do using this active record DSL, a domain-specific language. So if a store is built up of many manufacturers, a manufacturer will have many items. And so the way you represent that is you have a manufacturer's table, an items table, and then you just say manufacturer. Inside your manufacturer model, you say has many symbol items, and then your item belongs to manufacturer, and you have has many relationship. And
the point is you get it all for free. If you name your foreign keys in a certain way, and you name your regular keys in a certain way, all this stuff just comes for free. Callbacks, this is like you can have an after save callback. That's the typical example. Like you save a new record and maybe you want to fire off an email message after it's saved, or maybe you want to, after saves, do some sort of auditing, logging, low-level database operation. Validations we covered, and again, no direct SQL unless you want to. But loading and saving, all the standard CRUD operations you kind of get for free. Let's enjoy the view. I don't know if you can see that. It's a car. I think that's a car jumping the Grand Canyon. Not exactly sure.
So views are the dumb presentation layer. We talked about that. At most you might have some simple logic going on in a view. If you're showing all the items for a manufacturer, you're gonna wind up doing a loop somewhere, and a view is an acceptable place to do this type of simple logic. Also, if you have some conditionals, you can stick those in views. But the idea is that you want your view to be as simple as possible, because they really shouldn't be doing too much. And also, I guess views wind up getting handed off to designers too, so you don't really want to give the designers too much code when you're working with them. Layouts for standard look, we covered it. We did cover that.
Covered all that.
Yeah.
We're done.
If you do find yourself needing some to extend a view and have some more complex logic, but it's not really something that would belong in a model, and you definitely don't want to put it in the controller. Rails has a good convention for adding for adding extra logic to your views. They come in the form of helpers. So any Rails app has a app/helpers directory, and these kind of get automatically loaded in whenever you render a view. So if you have something a little more complex, you put it in a helper, and a helper is just Ruby code. It's a Ruby module, it gets included, and that's a good place for them. Just keep them out of the view.
Controllers. That is a very big Nintendo NES, old school Nintendo controller, if you can't see that, as a coffee table. The controller runs the show, so the controller is what's responsible for talking to the models and say, hey, Mr. Model, why don't you load up item 42 for me? And then it says, hey, Mr. View, here's item 42. Go ahead and do whatever you need to do to render it. These are the actions. There's a standard URL structure in Rails that maps to every specific controller method. They're called actions. It's deterministic. It's all expressed in a routing file. Again, we already covered REST and CRUD. All the standard verbs of loading, saving, deleting, updating are handled in a conventional way. There's also this notion of filters.
Filters, Rails comes with all sorts of callback systems, and filters are another form of callbacks that happen. One of the really popular filter you see often is a before filter, and if it's a before filter, then it's something that's going to happen before an action is executed, before the method is called that the route routes to. So pretty often you'll see something that will say before filter, login required, only update and delete and destroy, or update, delete, and edit. And what this would do is it would ensure it would run a little piece of code which is called login required, and it would make sure it would only do that when the routes are going to the actions that you've specified.
Like you only want to require login if someone's trying to update something. You don't want to require it if they're trying to read something.
Right.
Necessarily.
So it allows you. It's an easy way to hook in to your rendering stack and do specific things in certain cases.
All right, it's halftime. We're gonna do a little video here to wake everybody up. You ready, Ben? All right. This video can explain it maybe better than we can.
M is for model, B is for view, C is for controller, and together this framework works better for you.
I don't even know what a database call is.
Hey guys, break it up, what's going on?
Yeah, the view was just trying to get some records out of me.
I can render your data just fine. You don't know how to render data.
Hey guys, you don't have to get along, that's why I'm here. If you need anything from each other, just let me know, I'm the controller.
That sounds great. Tell SQL Face over there that I need a collection of 80s lyrics.
Hey model, could you please get a collection of 80s lyrics for the view, please?
Fine. Here. Hi. I vaguely resemble TV's Burt Reynolds, which makes me somewhat of an authority. You know, MVC is just a framework, but it's up to you to keep things modular, organized, and separated. It's never a pretty picture when overlap occurs between the presentation layer and the domain layer. It's also not pretty when overlap occurs between your dates with the Swedish bikini team.
Alright, let's render this partial, alright? Just want to tell you how I'm feeling. Gonna make you understand. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you. Oh, God!
You rickrolled him, didn't you?
Sure did. Yep.
Big props to the guy. These guys are from Orlando, Rails MV, and also one of the guys from 5 Runs that does Rails site monitoring. Good guys. They've done a whole series of those, series of PSAs on MVC. They also do screencasts, so they're doing good work down there in Orlando.